Hercule Poirot and Puzzle of the Crooked Necklace. Chapter 1. The Invitation to Blackthorn Manor. Hercule Poirot adjusted his impeccable moustache in the reflection of the train window, his sharp grey eyes scanning the blurred countryside of Dorset as it raced by. The rhythmic clatter of the carriage was soothing, yet his mind buzzed with curiosity. The letter in his breast pocket, penned in an elegant but urgent hand, had piqued his interest most profoundly. "Mon cher Poirot," it began, "your reputation as a solver of puzzles precedes you. I implore your presence at Blackthorn Manor this weekend. A matter of great delicacy surrounds my family's heirloom, the Crooked Necklace. I fear for its safety, and perhaps more. Discretion is paramount. Yours, Lady Beatrice Harrow." Poirot did not take invitations lightly, especially those tinged with such mystery. The Crooked Necklace was no stranger to the whispers of London society. A jewel of exquisite beauty, its central emerald said to be flawed in a way that twisted light into unsettling patterns. Rumours of a curse clung to it, tales of misfortune dogging its owners. Poirot, a man of reason, dismissed curses, but he never dismissed human greed or desperation. These, he knew, were the true architects of calamity. The train slowed, and Poirot disembarked at a quaint station, where a chauffeured car awaited. The driver, a taciturn man with a weathered face, spoke little, guiding the vehicle through winding lanes until Blackthorn Manor loomed into view. The estate was a study in contrasts. Its ivy-clad stone walls exuded timeless grandeur, yet the jagged spires and shadowed windows hinted at secrets. The late afternoon sun cast long, claw-like shadows across the gravel drive. At the manor's entrance, Lady Beatrice Harrow greeted him. She was a woman of advanced years but regal bearing, her silver hair swept into a chignon, her eyes sharp with intelligence and unease. "Monsieur Poirot, you honour us," she said, her voice steady but laced with strain. "I trust your journey was pleasant." "Most satisfactory, madam," Poirot replied, bowing slightly. "But it is the purpose of my visit that occupies my little grey cells. This necklace, perhaps you will enlighten me." "Soon, monsieur, soon," she said, guiding him into a vast hall adorned with portraits of stern-faced Harrows. "First, allow me to introduce you to our gathering. We are hosting a gala tomorrow, and certain personages are already here." The drawing-room was a spectacle of opulence. Crystal chandeliers gleamed, and a fire crackled in a marble hearth. Yet the air was thick with tension, as if the room itself held its breath. Poirot's gaze swept over the assembled company, cataloguing each face with precision. There was Sir Reginald Harrow, Lady Beatrice's nephew, a broad-shouldered man in his 40s, with a forced smile and restless hands. Beside him stood his wife, Clara, her beauty marred by a nervous habit of twisting her pearl bracelet. A young man, introduced as Victor Harrow, the disinherited cousin, lounged by the window, his eyes darting with barely concealed resentment. A guest, Mr. Elias Thorne, a jeweller of some repute, adjusted his spectacles and spoke in clipped tones about gemology. Miss Daphne Lyle, a vivacious actress and Clara's friend, laughed too loudly, her gaiety ringing false. Finally, Dr. Malcolm Finch, a family friend and amateur historian, clutched a glass of sherry, his brow furrowed as he muttered about ancient curses. Poirot's lips curved slightly. "Mon Dieu," he thought, "what a tableau of motives we have here." He accepted a cup of tea from a maid, noting her trembling hands as she retreated. Even the staff, it seemed, were not immune to the manor's unease. "Monsieur Poirot," Lady Beatrice said, drawing him aside, "the crooked necklace is to be displayed at tomorrow's gala, under the strictest security. Yet I have received intimations that it may be targeted. I cannot say more now, but I beg you to observe, to listen." "Rest assured, madame," Poirot said, his voice calm but firm. "The little grey cells of Hercule Poirot are already at work. No detail, however small, escapes my notice." As the evening progressed, Poirot mingled, his polite inquiries masking his relentless scrutiny. He noted Sir Reginald's whispered argument with Victor, Clara's furtive glance at Mr. Thorne, and Dr. Finch's peculiar interest in a dusty tome on the mantel. The necklace itself remained unseen, locked away, its presence a spectre over the gathering. Dinner was served in a dining room, aglow with candlelight, but the mood was sombre. A sudden gust rattled the windows, and Miss Lyle gasped, her hand fluttering to her throat. "It's that wretched necklace," she murmured. "They say it brings storms." "Nonsense," Sir Reginald snapped, but his voice lacked conviction. Poirot sipped his wine, his mind turning. A necklace, a curse, a house full of secrets. What puzzle was this? As the clock struck 10, he retired to his room, but sleep was far from his thoughts. The game, as his friend Hastings might say, was afoot. Chapter 2. The Curse of the Crooked Gem. The morning sun struggled through the heavy drapes of Blackthorn Manor's library, casting a pale glow over shelves laden with ancient volumes and curios. Hercule Poirot sat in a high-backed chair, his posture impeccable, his hands folded neatly over his polished cane. Opposite him, Lady Beatrice Harrow leaned forward, her expression a mix of resolve and trepidation. The other guests, summoned at her request, formed a semicircle around the room, their faces betraying varying degrees of curiosity, scepticism, or unease. "Monsieur Poirot," Lady Beatrice began, her voice steady but resonant with gravity, "you have come to protect the crooked necklace, but to understand the danger, you must first know its story. It is not merely a jewel. It is a harbinger." Poirot's eyes gleamed with interest. "Madame, I am all attention. Pray, recount this tale of your heirloom." She nodded, her gaze distant. "The crooked necklace came into the Harrow family in 1798, acquired by my great-grandfather, Lord Edmund Harrow, during his travels in Egypt. It was taken, some say stolen, from the tomb of a forgotten queen, a woman said to wield powers beyond mortal ken. The necklace is exquisite, a chain of gold filigree set with sapphires, and at its heart a single emerald large as a quail's egg. But the emerald is flawed, its facets misaligned in a way that distorts light into unnatural shapes. They call it the crooked gem. Miss Daphne Lyle, the actress, shivered dramatically, clutching Clara Harrow's arm. "It sounds ghastly," she whispered, though her eyes sparkled with fascination. Lady Beatrice continued, undeterred. "Lord Edmund brought it home, but misfortune followed. His ship sank off Gibraltar, though he survived. His wife died in childbirth soon after. His finances crumbled. He swore the necklace was cursed, and each subsequent owner faced calamity. My father lost his sight. My brother perished in a hunting accident. Even..." She faltered, then straightened. "I have borne my own losses." Dr. Malcolm Finch, the historian, cleared his throat, his voice pedantic. "There are records, Monsieur Poirot, from Cairo's antiquarians. The Queen's tomb bore inscriptions warning of vengeance on those who defiled it. The emerald was her talisman, Sir Reginald Harrow scoffed, pacing near the fireplace. Superstitious rot. It's a valuable gem, nothing more. People invent curses to explain their own failures. Poirot's lips twitched in a faint smile. Monsieur, you dismiss the supernatural. Yet the room feels heavy with its shadow, n'est-ce pas? His gaze swept the group, noting Victor Harrow's clenched jaw, Mr. Elias Thorne's thoughtful frown, and Clara Harrow's pale, distracted stare. Lady Beatrice pressed on. Whether curse or coincidence, the necklace has drawn envy and treachery. Thieves have tried to claim it, only to meet ruin. In 1842, a footman vanished after attempting to steal it. His body was found in the river. In 1890, a French dealer was caught with a forged replica. He died in prison. Now, I fear anew. Anonymous letters have arrived hinting at a plot to take it during tomorrow's gala. Poirot leaned forward, his voice soft but incisive. These letters, madame, may I see them? They were destroyed, she admitted, a flush rising to her cheeks. I thought them pranks at first, but their tone grew menacing. I burned them to keep the household calm. A pity, Poirot murmured, though his expression betrayed no frustration. He turned to the group. And you, mes amis, what think you of this tale? Does the crooked gem inspire fear? Or desire? Victor Harrow smirked, his voice bitter. It's a pretty bauble, but I'd rather have the money it's worth. Curses don't scare me. Poverty does. Mr. Thorne, the jeweller, adjusted his spectacles. From a professional standpoint, its value lies in its rarity. The emerald's flaw is unique, a natural aberration. But curses, mere folklore. Clara Harrow spoke softly, almost to herself. It's beautiful, but wrong somehow. I've seen it once. The light in it moves like a trapped thing. Miss Lyle laughed, though it sounded forced. Oh, Clara, you'll give me nightmares. Monsieur Poirot, surely you don't believe in such nonsense. Poirot's smile was enigmatic. Mademoiselle, I believe in what the evidence tells me, and the evidence suggests that this necklace, cursed or not, is a magnet for trouble. Mais oui, the human heart is often more crooked than any gem. The room fell silent, the weight of his words settling like dust. Lady Beatrice rose, her composure restored. Monsieur Poirot, the necklace is secured in a locked room, under guard. You shall see it this afternoon. For now, I ask you to keep your eyes open. Someone here may know more than they admit. As the group dispersed, Poirot remained, his fingers tapping lightly on his cane. He noted Sir Reginald's lingering glance at Victor, Miss Lyle's whispered exchange with Clara, and Dr. Finch's furtive note-taking. The crooked necklace was indeed a puzzle, but not of the supernatural kind. It was a puzzle of motives, of glances, of silences. And Hercule Poirot, with his little grey cells, was determined to solve it. Chapter 3. The Locked Room Display. De Dieu. Afternoon light filtered through the tall, mullioned windows of Blackthorn Manor. But it did little to dispel the chill in the air, as Hercule Poirot followed Lady Beatrice Harrow down a corridor lined with faded tapestries. The group of guests trailed behind, their footsteps echoing on the polished oak floor. Poirot's eyes, ever alert, noted the manor's grandeur tinged with neglect. A cobweb in a corner, a tarnished sconce. Mon Dieu, he thought, even the house keeps secrets. They stopped before a heavy oak door, its surface carved with intricate vines. Lady Beatrice produced a key from a chain around her neck, her movements deliberate, "This," she announced, "is where the crooked necklace is kept. Monsieur Poirot, you wish to see the precautions we have taken. I trust you will find them satisfactory." Poirot inclined his head, his moustache twitching slightly. "Madame, I am most eager to observe. A jewel of such reputation demands protection, n'est-ce pas?" The door creaked open, revealing a small windowless chamber. At its centre stood a pedestal, atop which rested a glass case, its edges reinforced with steel. Within, the crooked necklace gleamed under a single electric bulb. The emerald at its heart caught the light, casting jagged, unsettling reflections on the walls, like the shadows of a fractured mirror. The gold chain and sapphires sparkled, but it was the emerald, large, flawed, and strangely alive, that commanded attention. Mr. Elias Thorne, the jeweller, stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. "Remarkable," he murmured. "The flaw is even more pronounced than I'd heard. It's almost hypnotic." "Hypnotic or cursed," Miss Daphne Lyle quipped, though her laugh faltered as she glanced at the gem. Clara Harrow stood silent, her fingers twisting her bracelet, while Victor Harrow lingered at the back, his expression unreadable. Lady Beatrice gestured to the case. "The glass is bulletproof, designed by a Swiss firm. The pedestal is bolted to the floor, and the case is locked with a mechanism that requires 2 keys. One I keep, the other held by our butler, Mr. Grayson. The room itself is secured with this door, which has a unique lock, and a guard will be posted outside tomorrow during the gala." Sir Reginald Harrow, standing near the door, added gruffly, "We've spared no expense. No thief could breach this without dynamite, and even then they'd be caught." Poirot circled the pedestal, his cane tapping lightly on the floor. Guillaume examined the case, noting the seamless joints and the intricate lock. He peered at the walls, plain stone with no visible seams, and tested the floorboards, finding them solid. "C'est magnifique," he said, his tone neutral. "A fortress for a jewel, and yet—" He paused, his eyes meeting Lady Beatrice's. "No system is infallible, madam. The human element, it is always the weak point." Dr. Malcolm Finch, clutching his notebook, frowned. "Are you suggesting sabotage, Monsieur Poirot? The staff have been with the family for years." "I suggest nothing, monsieur," Poirot replied smoothly. "I merely observe. For example—" He pointed to a faint scratch on the pedestal's base, barely visible. "This mark, recent perhaps? A careless moment during installation?" Lady Beatrice's brow furrowed. "I hadn't noticed. The case was set up only yesterday, under Mr. Grayson's supervision." "Curious," Poirot murmured, filing the detail away. He turned to the group, his voice light but probing. "And you, mes amis, does this fortress inspire confidence, or does it tempt the daring?" Victor Harrow snorted. "It's overkill. If someone wants it badly enough, they'll find a way. Always do." Clara's voice was soft, almost a whisper. "It feels like a cage, not a display. As if the necklace is trapped." "Trapped!" Miss Lyle exclaimed, her eyes wide. "Oh, Clara, you do say the creepiest things." "It's just a jewel, for heaven's sake." Mr. Thorne adjusted his spectacles. "A jewel worth a king's ransom. Security is prudent, but Victor's right. Desperation breeds ingenuity." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Exactement. And desperation, it wears many faces." He glanced at Sir Reginald, whose jaw tightened, and at Dr. Finch, who scribbled furiously in his notebook. Lady Beatrice locked the case and the room, her hands steady, but her eyes betraying a flicker of doubt. The necklace will remain here until tomorrow's gala, when it will be displayed briefly under guard. Monsieur Poirot, I rely on your vigilance. Rest assured, madame, Poirot said, bowing slightly. The little grey cells are never idle. As the group dispersed, Poirot lingered in the corridor, his mind turning. The locked room was a puzzle in itself, impregnable, yet not invulnerable. The scratch on the pedestal, the guests' reactions, the weight of the necklaces, curse, all were pieces of a larger mosaic. He recalled the anonymous letters Lady Beatrice had mentioned, now destroyed. A pity, he thought. But the truth, it leaves traces elsewhere. The manor hummed with preparations for the gala. But beneath the bustle lay a current of unease. Poirot adjusted his tie, his resolve firm. The crooked necklace was more than a jewel. It was a catalyst, drawing out the hidden desires and fears of those around it. And Hercule Poirot intended to uncover them all. Chapter 4. Shadows at the Gala. The grand ballroom of Blackthorn Manor glittered under the glow of a dozen chandeliers, their crystal prisms, scattering light across polished parquet floors and silk-draped walls. The gala was in full swing, with the county's elite mingling in a swirl of laughter, clinking glasses and the lilting strains of a string quartet. Yet Hercule Poirot, standing near a marble column, felt the undercurrent of unease that pulsed beneath the revelry. His sharp grey eyes darted from face to face, cataloguing every gesture, every glance. The crooked necklace, displayed briefly earlier under the watchful eyes of two burly guards, had been returned to its locked room. The sight of its emerald casting warped, almost sinister reflections had silenced the crowd for a moment, as if the jewel's rumoured curse held them in thrall. Now, with the case secured, the guests seemed determined to shake off its spell, though Poirot noted their forced gaiety. Lady Beatrice Harrow, resplendent in a sapphire gown, moved among her guests with practised grace, but her smile was tight, her gaze flickering toward the corridor where the necklace lay. Poirot, sipping a glass of mineral water, observed her closely. She fears more than theft, he thought. But what? His attention shifted to Sir Reginald Harrow, who stood near the punch-bowl, his face flushed from wine or anger, as he argued in low tones with Victor Harrow. The younger man's smirk was sharp, his words inaudible, but clearly cutting. Poirot edged closer, catching only fragments. "And your debts?" And no claim to it. Sir Reginald's hand clenched his glass, and Victor sauntered away, leaving his cousin seething. Across the room, Clara Harrow stood with Miss Daphne Lyle, the actress's laughter ringing out as she flirted with a young viscount. Clara, pale and withdrawn, clutched a champagne flute, her eyes darting to Mr. Elias Thorne, the jeweller, who was deep in conversation with Dr. Malcolm Finch. Thorne's gestures were animated, his fingers tracing shapes in the air, as if describing a gem's facets, while Finch nodded, his expression intense. Poirot's moustache twitched. A discussion of jewels, or something more? A sudden flicker of the chandeliers plunged the room into shadow for a heartbeat, eliciting gasps from the guests. The lights steadied, but the mood had shifted. "Faulty wiring," Sir Reginald called out, forcing a chuckle. But Poirot noted the maid's trembling hands as she refilled a tray of canapés. The manor itself seemed to conspire against tranquillity. Poirot drifted toward Clara, his manner polite but probing. "Madame, you seem distracted. The gala? It does not please you?" She started, her fingers tightening on her glass. "Oh, Monsieur Poirot, it's splendid, truly. I'm just tired. The necklace, it's unsettling, don't you think?" "Unsettling, oui," he agreed, his tone gentle. "But it is safe, is it not? The locked room, the guards, impossible to breach." Her eyes met his, wide and fleetingly unguarded. "Nothing's impossible," she murmured, then caught herself, forcing a smile. "One hopes it's safe." Before Poinou-Paragraph Poirot could press further, a cry rang out from the far end of the ballroom. Miss Lyle swayed dramatically, her hand pressed to her forehead as she collapsed into a chair, fanning herself. "I feel faint," she gasped, drawing a crowd of concerned guests. Dr. Finch rushed to her side, loosening her collar and calling for water. Poirot watched, his lips pursed. A performance, perhaps, he wondered, noting her quick recovery as the Viscount offered his arm. The incident broke the evening's rhythm. Guests whispered about the necklace's curse, their voices tinged with nervous excitement. Poirot slipped away, moving toward the corridor where the locked room lay. The guard, a stout man with a ruddy face, stood rigid, his eyes scanning the hall. Poirot nodded courteously, then paused, feigning interest in a nearby painting. He listened, catching the faint sound of footsteps retreating down a side passage. Curieux, he thought, filing the detail away. Returning to the ballroom, he found Lady Beatrice addressing the guests, her voice steady but strained. "My friends, let us toast to the crooked necklace. May its beauty endure, and its shadow pass." The crowd raised their glasses, but Poirot saw the fear in her eyes. The toast felt like a plea. As the quartet struck up a waltz, Poirot retreated to a quiet corner, his mind a whirl of observations, Victor's taunts, Clara's cryptic words, Thorne's intensity, Miss Lyle's theatrics, the flickering lights, the unseen footsteps. The crooked necklace was a lodestone, drawing out the manor's secrets, and Hercule Poirot, with his little grey cells, was ready to trace their paths. Chapter 5. The necklace vanishes. The gala at Blackthorn Manor had reached its zenith, the ballroom alive with the whirl of dancers and the hum of conversation, when a piercing scream shattered the revelry. Hercule Poirot, stationed near a velvet-curtained alcove, snapped to attention, his grey eyes narrowing. The sound came from the corridor leading to the locked room, and it was followed by a shout, "The necklace! It's gone!" The music faltered, then stopped. Guests froze, their faces a tableau of shock and curiosity. Lady Beatrice Harrow, her sapphire gown catching the chandelier's light, pushed through the crowd, her expression a mask of dread. Poirot followed swiftly, his cane tapping a steady rhythm as he navigated the throng. Behind him, Sir Reginald. Harrow bellowed for order, while Clara Harrow clutched Miss Daphne Lyle's arm, her face ashen. At the oak door of the locked room, the guard, Mr. Grayson, the butler, stood trembling, his ruddy face drained of colour. "I swear, madam," he stammered to Lady Beatrice, "I never left my post, not for a moment." Lady Beatrice fumbled with the key at her neck, her hands shaking as she unlocked the door. Poirot, at her side, noted the guard's sweat-beaded brow and the faint scuff on the threshold. Fresh, perhaps? The door swung open, revealing the small chamber. The glass case on its pedestal stood intact, the steel edges gleaming, the lock undisturbed. But the crooked necklace was gone. The velvet lining within the case lay empty, mocking the room's silence. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, his voice low but resonant. He stepped forward, his eyes scanning every inch of the scene. The case showed no signs of tampering, no scratches, no cracks. The pedestal remained bolted to the floor, the walls unmarred. The room's single bulb cast stark light, revealing nothing out of place. It was, to all appearances, an impossible crime. Lady Beatrice swayed, clutching the doorframe. "How?" she whispered. "How could this happen?" Sir Reginald stormed in, his voice thunderous. "Grayson, you fool! Did you fall asleep? Let someone slip past." "No, sir!" Grayson protested, his hands raised. "I was here, eyes open the whole time. No one entered, I swear it." Victor Harrow pushed through, his smirk barely concealed. "Well, someone did, didn't they? Unless the curse spirited it away." His tone dripped with mockery, drawing a glare from his cousin. "Enough!" Lady Beatrice snapped, her composure fraying. "Monsieur Poirot, you saw the precautions. This is unthinkable. You must find it." Poirot raised a hand, his demeanour calm amid the chaos. "Madame, panic obscures the truth. Let us proceed with order. First, we confirm. The case is locked, oui? The keys, yours and Monsieur Grayson's, were not used." Lady Beatrice nodded, producing her key. Grayson, fumbling, showed his own, still on a chain at his waist. "Never left my person," he insisted. Poirot knelt by the case, his magnifying glass glinting as he examined the lock. "No tampering," he said softly, "and the guard saw no one. Très intéressant." He rose, turning to the gathered guests who had crowded into the corridor. "Mes amis, this is no time for speculation. I require facts. Who was near this corridor during the gala?" Clara's voice trembled. I passed by earlier to get some air, but I didn't go near the door." Miss Lyle, her earlier theatrics forgotten, clutched her shawl. "I was dancing all evening, Monsieur Poirot. You saw me." Mr. Elias Thorne adjusted his spectacles, his tone measured. "I stepped out briefly to smoke on the terrace. I saw no one suspicious, but the lights flickered again. Perhaps a distraction." Dr. Malcolm Finch, clutching his notebook, muttered, "This is the curse at work. I warned you all." "Rubbish!" Sir Reginald barked, but his eyes darted nervously. Victor leaned against the wall, silent but watchful, while the other guests murmured, their accusations veiled but sharp. Poirot's gaze lingered on each face, noting Clara's pallor, Thorne's calculated calm, and Victor's studied indifference. "Bon," he said at last. "The necklace has vanished, yet the room remains a fortress. This is a puzzle, oui, but Hercule Poirot does not believe in miracles or curses. Someone has been clever. Too clever, perhaps." He turned to Lady Beatrice. "Madame, seal this. Room. No one enters without my permission. I shall begin my inquiries at once." As the crowd dispersed, whispers of theft and betrayal trailing them, Poirot stood alone in the chamber, his fingers tracing the pedestal's faint scratch, the one he had noted earlier. It was unchanged, yet its presence nagged at him. A clue, or a coincidence, he wondered. The crooked necklace was gone, but it had left behind a web of motives and deceptions, and Poirot, with his little grey cells, was already spinning the threads together. Chapter 6. The Alibis Unravel. The morning after the gala, Blackthorn Manor was cloaked in a heavy silence, broken only by the occasional creak of floorboards or the distant clatter of a servant's tray. The theft of the crooked necklace had cast a pall over the household, and the guests confined to the manor at Hercule Poirot's request, moved with the wariness of caged creatures. In the library, Poirot sat at a mahogany desk, his notebook open, his pen poised. Before him, the suspects would come, one by one, to offer their accounts of the fateful night. Mon Dieu, he thought, the truth hides in the cracks of their stories, and I shall find it. First was Sir Reginald Harrow, his broad frame filling the doorway, his face a mix of indignation and fatigue. "This is preposterous, Poirot," he began, slumping into a chair. "Keeping us like prisoners. I'm no thief." Poirot's smile was polite but unyielding. "Monsieur, I seek only clarity. Where were you during the gala, particularly when the necklace was found missing?" Sir Reginald rubbed his temples. "In the ballroom mostly. I spoke with guests, danced with Clara, argued with that wastrel Victor. Nothing unusual. When Beatrice screamed, I was near the punch bowl, I think. Ask anyone." Poirot's pen scratched a note. "And this argument with Monsieur Victor, what was its nature?" Sir Reginald's jaw tightened. "Family business. He's always resented me, thinks he's entitled to more than he's got. But I didn't steal anything." "Bien," Poirot said, his tone neutral. "And you saw no one near the locked room?" "No one," Sir Reginald snapped, but his eyes flickered, and Poirot noted it. Next came Clara Harrow, her pale hands twisting a lace handkerchief. She sat primly, her voice soft. "I was with Daphne most of the evening, Monsieur Poirot. We danced, chatted. I don't recall anything odd until the scream." Poirot leaned forward, his gaze gentle but piercing. "Madame, you seemed troubled at the gala. You spoke of the necklace as trapped. Did you see anything or anyone that gave you pause?" Clara hesitated, her eyes darting to the window. "No. I mean, I saw Mr. Thorne near the corridor once, but he was just passing by, I think." Her voice wavered, and Poirot's pen paused. "Merci, madame," he said, dismissing her with a nod. A crack in the story, he thought. Thorne, near the corridor. Miss Daphne Lyle entered with a flourish, her actress's poise barely masking her nerves. "Monsieur Poirot, this is all so thrilling, dreadful," she said, fanning herself. "I was in the ballroom, charming the Viscount, until I felt faint. Clara was with me, and then Dr. Finch helped. I didn't see anything suspicious." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Your faintness, mademoiselle, it was sudden, oui? A distraction, perhaps?" Daphne's laugh was sharp. "A distraction? Oh, you're clever." "No, I just had too much champagne, I'm afraid." But her fingers toyed with her necklace, and Poirot's eyes narrowed. Victor Harrow slouched in next, his smirk defiant. "I know what you're thinking, Poirot. The disinherited cousin, perfect suspect. Well, I was in the ballroom, drinking, and watching Reginald make a fool of himself. Didn't go near the locked room." "And your argument with Sir Reginald?" Poirot asked, his voice mild. Victor shrugged. "Just needling him. He's got debts, you know, cards, horses, maybe. He needed the necklace to pay them off." His tone was casual, but his eyes were sharp, watching for Poirot's reaction. Mr. Elias Thorne, the jeweller, was precise, his hands folded neatly. "I was discussing gemology with Dr. Finch most of the evening," he said. "I stepped into the corridor briefly to clear my head. Too much cigar smoke in the ballroom. I saw nothing unusual." Poirot tilted his head. "Madame Clara places you near the locked room, monsieur. Can you clarify?" Thorne's composure faltered for a fraction of a second. "She must be mistaken. I was nowhere near that door." His voice was firm, but Poirot noted the slight tightening of his jaw. Dr. Malcolm Finch, the last to be interviewed, clutched his notebook like a shield. "I was with Mr. Thorne, then tending to Miss Lyle when she fainted," he said, his voice clipped. "The necklace's history fascinates me, but I'm no thief." "And your notes, monsieur?" Poirot asked, gesturing to the notebook. "They concern the necklace's curse." Finch flushed. "Research, nothing more. I've no interest in stealing it." Poirot closed his notebook, his expression serene. "Merci, all of you. The alibis, they are like a tapestry, beautiful, but with threads that do not align." "It," rose, addressing the group now gathered at the library's edge. "Someone lies, or someone omits. The necklace did not vanish by magic. I ask you to remain vigilant and truthful." As the guests filed out, Poirot lingered, his mind sifting through the discrepancies. Sir Reginald's evasiveness, Clara's hesitation, Daphne's theatrics, Victor's accusations, Thorne's denial, Finch's secrecy, the smudge on the floor, the guard's certainty, the locked room, all pointed to a clever deception. The crooked necklace was gone, but its thief was still among them, and Hercule Poirot's little grey cells were closing in. Chapter 7. The Gardener's Secret. The late morning air at Blackthorn Manor carried the scent of damp earth and roses, a stark contrast to the stifling tension within its walls. Hercule Poirot, his patent leather shoes carefully navigating the gravel path, ventured into the manor's sprawling gardens. The interviews had yielded contradictions, but no clear path to the thief. Sometimes, he mused, the truth lies not with the grand, but with the humble. His destination was the gardener's shed, where an overlooked witness awaited. Old Tom, the manor's gardener for 3 decades, was a wiry man with hands gnarled like oak roots. He stood pruning a hedge, his eyes squinting against the sun as Poirot approached. "Morning, sir," he said, tipping his cap. "Heard you're the one sniffing out that stolen necklace." Poirot's moustache curved in a slight smile. "Monsieur Tom, you are perceptive. I seek only the truth, and I am told you see much from these gardens. Perhaps you saw something on the night of the gala." Tom set down his shears, wiping his brow. "Folks don't notice me much, sir, but I notice them. That night I was clearing weeds by the east wall, near the locked room, mind, when I saw something queer." Poirot leaned forward, his grey eyes sharp. "Quite? Describe this queer thing, if you please." Tom hesitated, glancing toward the manor as if it might overhear. "'Twas late, after the music started. I saw a shadow moving along the wall quickly where there's no path. Thought it was a guest taking a stroll, but they didn't come round the corner, just vanished like. And then I heard a noise, soft, like a window creaking. Shut." Poirot's fingers tapped his cane. "A shadow that vanishes, a window that creaks, most intriguing. This east wall, it faces the locked room directly." "Aye," Tom nodded. "The room's got no windows, though, least not that I ever saw. Stone wall, solid as you like. But I know what I saw, sir." "Merci, Monsieur Tom," Poirot said, his voice warm but his mind racing. "Your eyes, they are a gift to this investigation. Speak of this to no one, s'il vous plaît." As Tom returned to his pruning, Poirot strolled toward the east wall, his steps measured. The manor loomed above, its stone facade unbroken by windows in the locked room's vicinity. He examined the ground, finding faint scuff marks in the soil, partially obscured by trampled grass. A careless step, he thought, or a deliberate one. He tested the wall, pressing the stones, but none yielded. The creaking window Tom mentioned puzzled him. Could there be a hidden aperture, or was the sound a misdirection? Returning to the manor, Poirot sought out the butler, Mr. Grayson, in the servants' hall. "Monsieur Grayson," he began, "the U2 east wall, near the locked room. There are no windows, oui?" Yet a sound was heard, like a window closing. "Can you enlighten me?" Grayson, polishing a silver tray, frowned. "No windows there, sir. The locked room's built like a vault. There's an old servant's passage nearby, though, with a small window. It's been nailed shut for years, leads to the cellars, not the locked room." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "A passage, you say? I must see it." Grayson led him to a narrow door in the corridor, half hidden behind a tapestry. The passage was dusty, its air stale, and a small high window was indeed nailed shut, its frame warped. Poirot examined it, noting fresh scratches on the nails, as if someone had tried to pry them loose. "Curieux," he murmured. "This window, it faces the east wall?" "Yes, sir," Grayson confirmed, "but it's too far from the locked room to matter, surely." "Rien n'est insignifiant," Poirot replied softly. "Nothing is insignificant." Back in the library, Poirot sketched a rough map of the manor's layout, marking the locked room, the east wall, and the servants' passage. Tom's shadow and the creaking window suggested movement outside, yet the locked room's security remained unbreached. Was the thief an outsider, or had an insider used the grounds to create an illusion? The scuff marks, the scratched nails, small clues, but to Poirot they were like stars guiding a navigator. He thought of the guests, Sir Reginald's debts, Clara's unease, Daphne's theatrics, Victor's bitterness, Thorne's proximity, Finch's secrecy. Tom's observation added a new layer. Someone had been outside, unseen by the guard. The puzzle grows, Poirot thought, but so does the clarity. The crooked necklace was a magnet for deception, and Hercule Poirot was inching closer to its heart. Chapter 8. The Hidden Passage. The afternoon light waned over Blackthorn Manor, casting long shadows across its stone corridors, as Hercule Poirot stood in the library, his fingers tracing the edges of a bookcase. The gardener's tale of a vanishing shadow and a creaking window had set his little grey cells ablaze, and the scratched nails on the servants' passage window had deepened his suspicion. The locked room is a fortress, he thought, but fortresses have forgotten doors. His morning's inquiries had led him here, to a whispered rumour from a housemaid about odd draughts near the library's west wall. Poirot had dismissed the guests to their rooms, citing the need for reflection. But his true purpose was solitude, to explore. He tapped the bookcase, listening for hollow sounds, and pressed a carved panel adorned with a rose motif. A faint click echoed, and the bookcase shifted, revealing a narrow passage cloaked in darkness. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, "the manor yields its secrets." Lighting a small lantern borrowed from Mr. Grayson, Poirot stepped into the passage. The air was musty, thick with the scent of old stone and damp wood. Cobwebs brushed his shoulders, but he pressed on, his cane tapping the uneven floor. The passage sloped downward, twisting past rusted sconces and faded murals of pastoral scenes. After several minutes, he reached a junction. One path led toward the cellars, another ascended toward the upper floors. A third, narrower path, barely wide enough for a man, veered sharply to the right. Poirot followed the narrow path, noting scuff marks on the floor, recent, like those in the garden. The passage ended at a stone wall, but a closer inspection revealed a concealed latch. He pressed it, and a panel slid open, revealing the locked room itself. The glass case, still empty, gleamed under the electric bulb, and the pedestal stood undisturbed. Incroyable, Poirot thought. The thief had a way in, but how did they bypass the case? He examined the room anew, finding no signs of tampering on the case or pedestal. The smudge of dust near the base, noted earlier, now took on new significance. Perhaps a trace of the thief's passage. Poirot retraced his steps, emerging in the library with dust on his usually immaculate suit. He summoned Lady Beatrice and Mr. Grayson, his expression grave. "Madame, monsieur," he began, "this manor holds a secret passage, known to few, leading directly to the locked room. Was this known to you?" Lady Beatrice's eyes widened, her hand rising to her throat. "A passage? I vaguely recall tales of such things from the manor's Jacobite days. Smugglers' routes, hidden from prying eyes. But I thought them long sealed." Mr. Grayson nodded, his face pale. "There were stories, milady, but the staff never spoke of them openly. The library panel, I didn't know it still worked." Poirot's gaze was piercing. "And yet, someone knew. The passage shows signs of recent use. Madame, who among your household or guests might have knowledge of the manor's history?" Lady Beatrice hesitated. "Dr. Finch, perhaps he studied the Harrow archives. My nephew, Reginald, explored the manor as a boy. Victor, too, though he was younger. But surely—" Her voice trailed off, doubt creeping in. Poirot turned to Grayson. "The staff, monsieur. Any with long service who might recall such secrets?" "Tom, the gardener," Grayson said slowly. "He's been here longest, knows the grounds and house like his own skin. But he's loyal, sir. I'd stake my life on it. Loyalty, oui," Poirot said softly. "But knowledge is a dangerous thing." He dismissed them, requesting the passage remain secret for now. As they left, he summoned Dr. Malcolm Finch, whose obsession with the necklace's history made him a likely candidate for knowing the manor's hidden ways. Finch entered, clutching his notebook, his eyes wary. "Monsieur Poirot, you wished to see me?" "Monsieur Finch," Poirot said, his tone deceptively mild. "Your studies of Blackthorn Manor, are they confined to books, or have you explored its architecture?" Finch flushed. "I've read the archives, yes. There are mentions of passages from the 17th century, used to hide priests or smugglers, but I've never seen one. Why do you ask?" Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "A hypothesis, nothing more. Your notes, they are most detailed. Perhaps they include maps." Finch clutched his notebook tighter. "Just sketches of artifacts, monsieur. Nothing sinister." "Bien," Poirot said, dismissing him. But as Finch left, Poirot noted the man's quickened step. "He knows more than he says," he thought. The hidden passage was a revelation, yet it raised new questions. The locked case remained unbreached, the guard's testimony unchallenged. Was the passage a red herring, or the key to the theft? Poirot thought of the guests, Reginald's debts, Victor's resentment, Clara's unease, Daphne's theatrics, Thorne's proximity, Finch's secrecy. The passage suggested an insider, but the necklace's fate remained a puzzle. Hercule Poirot, his little grey cells humming, was determined to solve it. Chapter 9. The Jeweller's Confession. The library of Blackthorn Manor, with its towering shelves, and flickering firelight had become Hercule Poirot's command post. The discovery of the hidden passage had deepened the puzzle of the crooked necklace's theft, but it had not unlocked the mystery of the unbreached glass case. As evening settled over the manor, Poirot sat at the mahogany desk, his notebook filled with meticulous diagrams and notes. The smudge on the floor, the scuff marks in the passage, the gardener's shadow, all were pieces of a mosaic. Yet the picture remained elusive. Patience, he thought. The truth reveals itself to those who wait. A knock at the door interrupted his reverie. Mr. Elias Thorne, the jeweller, entered, his spectacles glinting in the lamplight. His usual composure was frayed, his hands fidgeting, with a pocket watch. "Monsieur Poirot," he began, his voice low, "I must speak with you alone. It concerns the necklace." Poirot gestured to a chair, his grey eyes sharp. "Monsieur Thorne, you have my attention. Speak freely, but speak truly." Thorne sat, glancing nervously at the door. "I examined the crooked necklace before the gala at Lady Beatrice's request. She wanted its authenticity verified. I spent an hour with it in the locked room, under Grayson's supervision, and I discovered something extraordinary." Poirot leaned forward, his moustache twitching. "Quoi? Do not keep Hercule Poirot in suspense." Thorne swallowed, his voice barely above a whisper. "The necklace in the case was a fake, a masterful replica, gold-plated with a synthetic emerald and glass sapphires. The craftsmanship was superb, but it lacked the crooked gem's unique flaw, the way it distorts light. I'd stake my reputation on it." Poirot's expression remained serene, but his mind raced. "A fake, you say? And you informed Lady Beatrice of this?" Thorne shook his head. "I tried, but she was distracted, preparing for the gala. I planned to tell her afterward, but then the theft happened. I kept silent, fearing I'd be accused of switching it myself." Poirot's fingers tapped his cane. "Mon Dieu, this changes much. If the necklace was a fake, what was stolen? And where is the true crooked necklace?" He fixed Thorne with a piercing gaze. "You are certain of your assessment?" "Absolutely," Thorne replied, his voice steadier. "I've handled gems for 30 years. The replica was convincing to a layman, but not to me." Poirot rose, pacing slowly. "Alors, we have a new puzzle. Was the theft a ruse to cover the absence of the real necklace? Or did the thief believe they stole the genuine article? And who crafted this replica?" He turned to Thorne. "You saw no one else in the locked room during your examination?" "No one," Thorne said. "Just Grayson, and he never touched the case. The keys were with him and Lady Beatrice, as always." "Merci, Monsieur Thorne," Poirot said, his tone dismissing but thoughtful. "This information, it is most valuable. But you will speak of it to no one until I say otherwise." As Thorne left, Poirot summoned Lady Beatrice to the library. Her regal bearing was strained, her eyes shadowed with worry. "Madame," Poirot began, "Monsieur Thorne claims the necklace in the case was a fake. Is this possible?" Lady Beatrice gasped, her hand flying to her chest. "A fake? Impossible! The crooked necklace has been in our family for generations, locked away except for rare occasions. I had it appraised 5 years ago. It was genuine then, and since that time," Poirot pressed, "who has had access to it? Only myself and Grayson," she said, her voice trembling. "The safe in my study, the locked room, No one else could have touched it, unless... She faltered, her gaze distant. Could someone have switched it long ago? Poirot's eyes narrowed. A possibility, madame. But the replica, it requires skill, motive, opportunity. I must know more of the necklace's recent history. Lady Beatrice nodded, promising to provide records of past appraisals. As she left, Poirot returned to his notebook, sketching a timeline. The hidden passage, the empty case, the gardener's shadow, and now a fake necklace. The clues were multiplying, but so were the questions. He thought of the guests. Sir Reginald's debts, Victor's resentment, Clara's unease, Daphne's theatrics, Finch's secrecy, and Thorne's revelation. Was the theft a cover for an earlier crime, or a bold move by a thief unaware of the forgery? Poirot closed his notebook, his resolve firm. The crooked necklace, real or fake, was a catalyst for deception. The truth lay not in the jewel itself, but in the hearts of those who coveted it. And Hercule Poirot, with his little grey cells, was determined to uncover it. Chapter 10. The Curse Strikes Again. The second evening at Blackthorn Manor was heavy with unease, the air thick with whispers of the crooked necklace's curse. The revelation of the fake necklace had sent ripples of shock through the household, and Hercule Poirot, seated in the drawing-room with his notebook, sensed the mounting tension among the guests. The hidden passage, the empty case, the jewellers, confession, all pointed to a labyrinth of deception, yet the true motive remained elusive. Patience, Poirot thought. The puzzle reveals itself in time. A sudden commotion shattered his thoughts. A scream, raw and piercing, echoed from the grand staircase, followed by a sickening thud. Poirot sprang to his feet, his cane forgotten, and hurried toward the sound, the other guests close behind. At the foot of the staircase lay Miss Daphne Lyle, her elegant gown askew, her face pale as she clutched her ankle. A broken balustrade dangled above, splinters scattered on the marble floor. "Oh, heaven!" Clara Harrow cried, kneeling beside her friend. "Daphne, are you hurt?" Daphne's breath came in gasps, her eyes wide with terror. It gave way," she stammered. "I leaned on the railing and it snapped. I could have died." Dr. Malcolm Finch, ever the amateur physician, pushed through the crowd, checking her pulse. "A sprained ankle, perhaps, and some bruises," he said, his voice steady but strained. "She's lucky it wasn't worse." Lady Beatrice, her face, ashen, gripped the banister. "The curse," she whispered. "First the theft, now this. The necklace brings ruin." "Nonsense," Sir Reginald snapped, though his voice trembled. "The railing's old, that's all. This house is falling apart." Poirot knelt beside the broken balustrade, his sharp eyes scanning the wood. The break was clean, but faint saw marks marred the grain, nearly invisible unless one looked closely. Not an accident, he thought, but sabotage. He rose, his expression serene but his mind racing. "Mademoiselle Lyle, you are fortunate," he said, his tone gentle. "But tell me, what brought you to the staircase at this hour?" Daphne, propped against Clara, shivered. "I was going to my room. I felt uneasy after all the talk of fakes and curses. I just wanted to be alone." Poirot nodded, turning to the group. "Mes amis, this incident is no curse, but a deed with purpose. The balustrade was tampered with. Someone wished harm or fear to befall Mademoiselle Lyle." Gasps rippled through the guests. Victor Harrow, leaning against a wall, raised an eyebrow. "So what? Someone's trying to bump us off now? That's a bit dramatic even for this place." Mr. Elias Thorne adjusted his spectacles, his voice tight. "Why, Daphne? She's no threat to anyone." "Perhaps," Poirot said, his gaze sweeping the faces, "it was not about harm, but distraction, or a warning. The thief, they grow bold or desperate." Clara's hands trembled as she helped Daphne to a chair. "Who would do this? It's monstrous." Dr. Finch, clutching his notebook, frowned. "The curse's history mentions accidents, falls, fires. It's uncanny." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Monsieur Finch, I respect your scholarship, but I seek human hands, not spectral ones. The sore marks, they are real. The motive, it is close." Lady Beatrice summoned the butler, Mr. Grayson, to escort Daphne to her room with Dr. Finch's assistance. As the group dispersed, Poirot lingered, examining the staircase. The sore marks were deliberate, shallow enough to weaken the balustrade, without being obvious, a calculated risk, he thought. But for what gain? He recalled the guests' alibis, Daphne's feint at the gala, her proximity to Clara, her theatrical flair. Was she a target because she knew something, or because she was a convenient pawn? The suspect pool narrowed. Sir Reginald, Victor, Clara, Thorne, Finch, and perhaps a servant like Grayson, or even old Tom. The fake necklace suggested a long-planned deception, but this accident felt impulsive, a reaction to Poirot's probing. In the drawing-room, Poirot addressed the remaining guests. "Mes amis, the thief is among us, and they fear exposure. I urge you to be cautious. The crooked necklace, real or fake, is a spark that ignites danger." As the fire crackled, Poirot's mind turned. The passage, the fake, the sore marks, all were threads in a tapestry of greed and fear. The curse was a myth, but the human heart was real, and Hercule Poirot was closing in on its secrets. Chapter 11. The Missing Clue. The third morning at Blackthorn Manor dawned grey and heavy, with mist clinging to the gardens like a shroud. Inside, the atmosphere was no less oppressive, the guests moving through the halls with wary glances, their nerves frayed by the theft of the crooked necklace, the revelation of its forgery, and the near-fatal accident befalling Miss Daphne Lyle. Hercule Poirot, seated in the library with a cup of tisane, was an island of calm amid the storm. His notebook lay open, pages filled with diagrams, timelines, and cryptic notations. The puzzle is nearly complete, he thought, but one piece eludes me. The hidden passage, the fake necklace, the sword balustrade, the gardener's shadow, all were clues, yet they lacked a unifying thread. Poirot's little grey cells churned, replaying every detail. Sir Reginald's debts, Victor's bitterness, Clara's unease, Daphne's theatrics, Thorne's confession, Finch's secrecy, the smudge on the floor, the scuff marks, the scratched nails on the servant's window. They pointed to a meticulous plan, but the why and how remained just out of reach. As he sipped his tisane, a memory flickered. A fleeting moment from the gala, dismissed at the time, but now glowing with significance. During Miss Lyle's dramatic feint, Poirot had overheard a whispered exchange near the ballroom's edge, too soft to discern, but marked by urgency. The speaker's voice, low and clipped, had been familiar, and the listener's silhouette had vanished into the crowd. Mon Dieu, he thought, the whisper is the key. But who spoke, and to whom? Poirot rose, his movements deliberate, and sought out Mr. Grayson, the butler, in the servants' hall. "Monsieur Grayson," he began, "during the gala, when Mademoiselle Lyle fainted, you were near the ballroom doors. Oui. Did you hear a conversation? Perhaps a whisper between two guests?" Grayson frowned, polishing a silver candlestick. "I was busy, sir, fetching water for the young lady. But, now you mention it, I did hear something." A man's voice, sharp-like, saying, "Not now, it's done." I couldn't see who, and I thought nothing of it. 1. Guests were milling about, so I didn't catch who it was. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "C'est magnifique! Not now, it's done. A confession, perhaps, or a signal. And you saw no one nearby?" Grayson shook his head. "Too many folks about, sir. Could have been anyone." Poirot nodded, his mind racing. The whisper suggested a conspiracy, a plan executed during the chaos of Daphne's faint. The distraction was no accident, he thought. It masked the thief's movements. But the locked room, the unbreached case, the fake necklace, these required more than a moment's opportunity. The whisper was a clue to timing, but the mechanism of the theft demanded precision. Returning to the library, Poirot reviewed his sketch of the manor's layout, focusing on the hidden passage and the locked room. The scuff marks, the smudge, the passage's access. They confirmed an insider's knowledge, but the case's lock, requiring 2 keys, remained inviolate. Unless... Poirot paused, a spark igniting. The keys themselves. Lady Beatrice and Grayson held them. But could one have been duplicated or misused? To test his hypothesis, Poirot devised a subtle trap. He gathered the guests in the drawing-room, his demeanour grave but composed. "Mes amis," he announced, "the theft of the crooked necklace is a crime of cunning, but not of magic. I have found evidence, a small object misplaced, that points to the thief. I shall reveal it tomorrow, after one final inspection of the locked room." The guests exchanged uneasy glances. Sir Reginald's jaw tightened. Victor smirked. Clara paled. Daphne clutched her sprained ankle. Thorne adjusted his spectacles, and Finch gripped his notebook. Poirot watched them all, noting their reactions. The guilty one will act, he thought, for fear drives the desperate. After dismissing the group, Poirot confided in Lady Beatrice, asking her to place a discreet watch on the locked room's corridor that night. "Madame," he said, "the thief may seek to cover their tracks. We must be ready." As the manor settled into an uneasy quiet, Poirot sat by the fire, his mind tracing the whisper's echo. "Not now, it's done." The words suggested completion, a task fulfilled. The fake necklace, the passage, the sabotage, all were parts of a larger scheme. The misplaced object was a fiction, a lure to flush out the culprit. But the whisper was real, and it tied the chaos of the gala to the silent theft. Hercule Poirot, his little grey cells alight, was ready to spring his trap. Chapter 12. The Gathering of Suspects. The drawing-room of Blackthorn Manor was steeped in tension, its heavy drapes drawn against the evening mist. A fire crackled in the hearth, casting flickering shadows across the faces of the assembled guests, who sat in a semicircle, their expressions ranging from apprehension to defiance. Hercule Poirot stood before them, his small, impeccable figure commanding the room. His hands were clasped behind his back, his grey eyes gleaming with the certainty of a man who had solved an intricate puzzle. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice clear and measured, "the theft of the crooked necklace is a crime of audacity and deception, a tapestry woven with threads of greed, fear, and cunning. Tonight I shall unravel it, revealing how the impossible was made possible, and who among you is the thief." Lady Beatrice Harrow, seated at the centre, gripped her shawl, her eyes fixed on Poirot. Sir Reginald Harrow scowled, his hands clenched. Clara Harrow sat pale and still, while Miss Daphne Lyle, her ankle bandaged, leaned forward, her actress's poise barely masking her nerves. Victor Harrow slouched, a smirk playing on his lips. Mr. Elias Thorne adjusted his spectacles, and Dr. Malcolm Finch clutched his notebook, his brow furrowed. Poirot paced slowly, his cane tapping the floor. "Let us begin with the facts. The necklace vanished from a locked room, its glass case unbreached, the door secured, the guard vigilant. Yet we learned from Monsieur Thorne that the necklace in the case was a fake, a replica of exquisite craft. This suggested a prior substitution. But when? And why steal a fake?" He paused, letting the question hang. The hidden passage, discovered in the library, offered a way into the locked room, bypassing the guard. Scuff marks and a smudge of dust confirmed its use. But the case's dual locks, held by Madame Beatrice and Monsieur Grayson, remained inviolate. How, then, was the replica removed? Sir Reginald snorted. "Get to the point, Poirot. Who did it?" Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Patience, monsieur. The clues, they tell a story. The gardener, old Tom, saw a shadow by the east wall, heard a creaking window. The servants' passage, with its scratched nails, suggested an attempt to mislead. The sawed balustrade that endangered Mademoiselle Lyle was no curse, but a desperate act. And a whisper at the gala, 'Not now, it's done,' marked the moment of the theft." The guests shifted uneasily. Poirot continued. "The replica was placed in the case long before the gala, perhaps years ago, when the true necklace was sold or hidden. The theft was a performance staged to conceal this earlier crime. But the thief miscalculated, unaware the necklace was fake, or perhaps intending to expose the forgery for their own ends." He turned to Lady Beatrice. "Madam, your distress was genuine, but your records showed no recent appraisal of the necklace. The last, 5 years ago, confirmed its authenticity. Someone with access to your safe, someone trusted, made the switch," Lady Beatrice gasped. "But only Grayson and I had access." "Exactement," Poirot said, his gaze sweeping the room. "Let us consider the gala. Mademoiselle Lyle's faint was a distraction, perfectly timed. The whisper I overheard came from a man urgent and clipped. Monsieur Thorne, you were near the corridor, yet denied it. Monsieur Finch, your notes on the manners passages were more than academic. Monsieur Victor, your bitterness gave you motive, but your alibi holds. Monsieur Reginald, your debts are a heavy burden." Clara's voice trembled. "What are you saying, Monsieur Poirot?" Poirot raised a hand. "The trap I set last night bore fruit. I spoke of a misplaced object to provoke the thief, and this morning a key, Grayson's key to the case, was found in the servants' passage, hastily discarded. Only one person had opportunity to take it, to use the hidden passage to stage the theft. He turned to Dr. Malcolm Finch, whose face paled. Monsieur Finch, your obsession with the necklace's curse was a facade. You studied the manor's passages, knew the library's secret. You crafted the replica, a skill learned in your youth as a jeweller's apprentice, before you turned to history. You switched the necklace years ago, selling the original to fund your research, but kept the replica in place to avoid suspicion. Finch's hands shook, his notebook falling. That's absurd. Poirot pressed on, relentless. The gala, you used Mademoiselle Lyle's feint, arranged with her perhaps for a share of the profits, to slip through the passage using Grayson's stolen key to open the case. You took the replica, believing it real, to sell again. The sword balustrade was your attempt to frighten Mademoiselle Lyle into silence when she grew nervous. The whisper, "Not now, it's done," was yours to an accomplice who remains silent. Daphne gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, but Poirot's eyes stayed on Finch. The key, discarded in panic, betrayed you. The true necklace is long gone, but your greed for the replica's value undid you. Finch slumped, his voice a whisper. I needed funds. The archives, my work. I thought no one would know. Poirot's expression softened, but his voice was firm. Monsieur, the human heart is a puzzle, but it cannot hide from Hercule Poirot. As Grayson summoned the authorities, the guests sat in stunned silence. The crooked necklace's curse was a myth, but its lure had ensnared Finch. Poirot adjusted his tie, his work nearly done, but one final truth awaited. Chapter 13. The Crooked Truth. The fire in Blackthorn Manor's drawing-room had dwindled to embers, casting a soft glow over the assembled guests who sat in a hushed semicircle. The revelation of Dr. Malcolm Finch's guilt had stunned them, but Hercule Poirot, standing with his hands clasped behind his back, was not yet finished. His grey eyes, sharp as ever, scanned the faces before him. Lady Beatrice Harrow, Reginald, Clara, Miss Daphne Lyle, Victor, and Mr. Elias Thorne. The air was thick with anticipation, for Poirot's tone suggested one final twist in the tale of the crooked necklace. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice calm but resonant. The theft of the crooked necklace was a puzzle of many layers, and Monsieur Finch, with his replica and greed, played a part. But he was not the mastermind. No, the true architect of this crime is one whose cunning nearly eluded even Hercule Poirot. A murmur rippled through the room. Lady Beatrice's hand tightened on her shawl. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice trembling, "you mean there is more?" "Oui, madame," Poirot replied, pacing slowly. Finch crafted the replica and stole it, believing it real. But he was a pawn in a greater scheme. The true necklace was taken years ago, its absence hidden by the replica. The gala's theft was staged not for profit, but for revenge, a motive as old as humanity itself. He turned to Clara Harrow, whose pale face froze under his gaze. "Madame Clara, you have been the shadow behind this crime. Your unease, your cryptic words about the necklace being trapped, your presence near every key moment, they betrayed you. You orchestrated the theft to expose the Harrow family's secrets and punish those who wronged you. Clara's lips parted, but no sound came. Sir Reginald leapt to his feet. "This is outrageous! Clara, a thief! She's my wife!" Poirot raised a hand, his authority unshaken. "Monsieur, hear me. Madame Clara's motive lies in the past. Years ago, she was promised a share of the Harrow fortune. But you, Monsieur Reginald, and Madame Beatrice ensured she received nothing, citing her unsuitable origins. The crooked necklace, a symbol of the family's pride, became her target. She learned of the hidden passage as a young woman in this house, and with Finch's help, whom she manipulated with promises of funding, she replaced the true necklace with a replica, selling the original to a discreet buyer abroad." Poirot's eyes softened, but his voice was relentless. "The gala was your stage, madame. You arranged Mademoiselle Lyle's faint to distract, knowing her flair for drama. You whispered to Finch, 'Not now, it's done,' signalling the replica's removal. The sword balustrade was your warning to Daphne, who suspected your role. You used Grayson's key, copied long ago, to access the case through the passage. But your true aim was not the replica's value. It was to reveal the family's financial ruin, hidden by the myth of the necklace's worth." Clara's composure cracked, tears welling. "You don't understand," she whispered. "They took everything, my dignity, my future. The necklace was their lie, a hollow symbol. I wanted them to feel the shame I did." Lady Beatrice's voice was a whisper. "Clara, how could you?" Poirot continued, his tone measured. "The anonymous letters to Madame Beatrice were yours, sowing fear to ensure my presence. You knew a detective of my caliber would uncover the forgery, exposing the family's collapse. Finch, believing he stole the real necklace, was your scapegoat, but the discarded key and your whispered signal betrayed you." Victor Harrow let out a low whistle. "Well played, Clara. Almost had us all." Thorne adjusted his spectacles, stunned. "The replica. I should have seen it sooner." Daphne, clutching her bandage, stammered, "I didn't know. I swear. I just followed her cues." Poirot's gaze returned to Clara. "Madame, your revenge was clever, but the human heart cannot hide its truth. The true necklace is gone, its proceeds lost to your cause. Justice, it will now take its course." Clara rose, her head high despite her tears. "I regret nothing," she said, as Grayson escorted her to await the authorities. Finch, already detained, would face his own reckoning. As the guests dispersed, Lady Beatrice approached Poirot, her eyes weary. "Monsieur Poirot, you have saved our honour, yet broken our family. Was it worth it?" Poirot bowed slightly. "Madame, the truth, it is always worth it, though its price is heavy. The crooked necklace was but a mirror, reflecting the crookedness within us all." Alone by the dying fire, Poirot adjusted his tie, his mind at peace. The curse was a myth, but greed, betrayal, and revenge were real. The puzzle was solved, and Hercule Poirot, with his little grey cells, had once again brought order to chaos.